board. And I want to welcome everyone to our Wellness Wednesday and happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Margie Graf from the Rockville Chamber of Commerce, and I'm thrilled to have partnered with Adventist Healthcare, their life work strategies, to provide some of our Wellness Wednesday tips. So I'm going to turn it over to Erica so she can introduce our speaker for today.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Erica Conover. I'm the Business Development Liaison with LifeWork Strategies. And so I think you've heard, at least some of you, I know there's some familiar faces here. I've listened to some of our team members through the past couple months now for Wellness Wednesday. So I've been on the back end helping coordinate those with our team members. But today I'm really excited to introduce Darlette McCormick, who is with Workplace Options, which is an amazing partner of LifeWork Strategies. And so Darlette McCormick is actually an accredited financial advisor and a certified housing counselor and a licensed real estate broker. She's received her bachelor's of science degree from Wake Forest University in 1991 and has worked with Workplace Options for the past 5 years. She's a member of several professional organizations, including the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning and Education and the Association of Realtors. Darlette was a 2011 Military Spouse Fellow selected by the Military Family Association and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority to become an accredited financial counselor assisting military families with their financial matters. So Darlette teaches financial literacy workshops in her community and has founded her own financial counseling business, Foundations for Wealth, LLC. On a personal note, Darlette has been married for 28 years, has 4 children, and resides in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, Darlette, thank you so much for being here today and talking to us about the importance of financial wellness. Dawn, I think you have a presentation. We'd love to show that and get Darlette and go ahead and get started.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. It's great to be here with you on this Financial Wellness Wednesday. I'm glad we have the time to just talk about a few tips to kind of help you along the way to financial wellness. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has no doubt affected us all in many different ways. So our finances have been affected nonetheless, probably in one way or another. So we just want to talk about today what we can get from the challenges that we may have faced during this pandemic to kind of help us restructure and retool our finances so that we're in better standing when the next challenge comes. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to get us off to a start by just having you kind of think about some ways or some lessons that you have learned from the coronavirus pandemic. I don't know if we have time to just have one or two chime in, or if you want to kind of put something in the chat box about if there's some lesson that was very clear that you learned during this time about your finances that you'd like to share. I'll give you a moment to do that if anyone has anything. If not, let me just take a moment to kind of share one of the lessons that I learned during this time of the pandemic. We were fortunate, very fortunate, that our family did not lose any income or loss of work during this time. We did have an outbreak, unfortunately. Sons play on the basketball team, so our twin sons did get it. But we were very fortunate that we did not lose any income. But we were making preparations in the event that we did. We're a 2-income household. At any point in time, we didn't know how that would be affected. So the lesson we learned was how to make a skeleton budget really quickly on a dime. So we kind of just took an assessment of where we were with all of our debts and obligations. We looked at those things that we could quickly get out of that obligation if we had to. So, what things were we under contract? Do we have phone contracts? What other things could we get out of quickly to scale down our budget on a dime if we had to? So that was very interesting. We learned that we have a lot of excessive things, not necessarily luxury, but there are quite a few things that we can do without if we had to. So that was the lesson that we learned. And so we want to, take a moment and just kind of walk through a few things to help you kind of see what lessons that can be gained from any challenges that you may or may not have had during this time. So next slide, please. With the rollout of the vaccines, we're starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're starting to see, life is about to return to some normalcy. So we want to take the time, and any challenge that you go through in life, it's always good to kind of look back and try and understand what lessons can I learn, or what, tools can I take from that. So I want you to imagine that you have just come through a natural disaster, such as a hurricane. So we know that with a hurricane, your position during that hurricane kind of determines how you come through. So if you think about it, if you're during a hurricane, if you're on a higher mountaintop, you may have, some wind damage, lose a few shingles, things of that nature. If you're on a lower level, you may have some minor flooding, a few branches down in your yard. And then if you're right there near the coast, of course, you're going to sustain the most catastrophic damage. So it's kind of the same concept when we're looking at our positioning during the pandemic. Some of us may have sustained very minor damage, if anything. There may be some people, matter of fact, there are a few that I know that actually are coming through a little bit better than they were prior pandemic. So we want you to kind of take some time. The first step really is to assess your current situation. If you had some loss of income, or if you're still on reduced hours, or maybe you still have full-time employment, but maybe your spouse has had some reduced hours. Take some time to assess what your current situation is. If it's right now, the best that you can do is just to make ends meet, then that is the thing to do. Don't, worry about those other debts that can't get paid, things that may be going on. You want to make sure your family has, basic essential things, food, shelter, those essential things. Once your income starts to normalize a little bit, then you can start thinking about what are the next steps. Am I participating in any forbearance programs? Any things that creditors, lenders may be offering. You want to participate in those things to try and get yourself back on track to some financial stability. So we want to look at some additional areas to kind of assess as you're rebuilding, restructuring your finances. So you want to take a look at your savings and assets. So maybe during the pandemic, you had to go through a lot of your savings. Quite a few people actually did not have emergency savings set aside. So you want to take time to assess, if I had enough savings, has it been depleted during this time? What are my other assets that I can take control of if I need to? Some people were able, through the CARES Act, to take monies out of their 401k plan. And that was a lifeline for a lot of people to be able to do that. So you want to look at, the areas that you had to depend on, and what areas were depleted, to kind of to make a plan to start to rebuild those assets and those savings. You want to look at your debt. So for a lot of people, they had to, as we were speaking, had to take on debt during this time. They were living off of credit cards, personal loans that they had taken, lines of credit. So some people had to take on more debt. Unfortunately, medical debt is something that a lot of people did not have to deal with pre-pandemic. But, due to either themselves being hospitalized or family members, they've had to take on debt. Unfortunately, I've talked to quite a few people who, as a result of losing family members who were not insured, have had to take on debt to pay for funeral expenses. So, everybody's situation is different, but you want to kind of look at that leading into estate planning documents. So hopefully everyone has those basic things in place. We're talking about things like your powers of attorney, your wills, your healthcare directive. Very, very, very important during this time. If you are unable to speak for yourself, have you designated those individuals that can make those decisions regarding your health? Um, so insurance coverages, assessing those, your basic health insurance. It was, important during this time to have proper coverage for health insurance. Some people may have had short-term, long-term disability insurance coverage through employers or outside of their job. That's been very important for a lot of people right now, having those types of coverages. And then another situation, I'm getting a lot of calls on retirement preparedness. The pandemic has been very hard on a lot of people. Think about your teachers, your first line responders. I've talked to a lot of people who have really just had it, and they want to see, you know what, I really feel like I need to retire right now. What's my positioning? If I retire, how long will my current savings last me into retirement? Or, what are those things that I should be looking at to get ready for retirement? It's not something that I had thought about, but this pandemic has really, made me shift focus. And so, in terms of shifting focus, what are your overall financial goals now? A lot of people, their perspective has completely changed through the pandemic in terms of what they want to do with their finances. Spoke with a few people prior who were planning on starting their own businesses. They were trying to get their personal finances in order to start their own business. Everything just completely changed during the pandemic. So their focus, now may be, I've got all this debt now. I can't start my business, or, my health condition has changed. We're talking about long haulers who, they may not be able to go back to their previous lines of employment. So it's important to just take stock of what are your new priorities? What should your new focus be in terms of your finances? Next slide. So, what are the strengths and weaknesses that you identify as you're taking an assessment of, your finances here as we're hopefully winding up the pandemic? How do you fortify those areas? If there's a lack of savings, how do you begin to rebuild that? If you're, a little bit closer to retirement, what do you do to better prepare for those retirement times? What are those retirement goals? So after you kind of assess those areas, you need to think about how you can fortify and strengthen those areas moving forward to be better prepared for the next financial challenge. We certainly hope that there will not be another pandemic anytime soon, but it may be something that's not on a wide scale that affects, the entire country or the entire world, but your next financial challenge could be something just regarding your own family situation, your job situation. So you want to be in a better position to attend to those challenges. Next slide. Tools and resources. So there are quite a few tools and resources that are available to you as you make the assessments and decide how you need to restructure and retool your finances right now. First and foremost, I'd like to, point out the Employee Assistance Program. We have a host of things that we can assist you with. Again, I'm one of the financial counselors there. So if you need help, just assessing what are my next steps, where do I go from here to begin to rebuild? We are happy. We've got some great individuals who will be happy to have some conversations with you. We can get you connected with some local resources in your area. For instance, we're talking to a lot of people who are having issues paying their mortgage. They may be in a temporary forbearance situation, but a lot of the mortgage companies, once that forbearance period is over, they're going to be looking for those payments in full that you missed. So just kind of mapping out a plan and understanding what options are available to you. We are certainly there to do that. Various state and local programs are available to kind of help decide what's best for you. Those of us who were fortunate, you may be in a position to rebuild. You may not have had any damage to your finances. You may have come through really well. We know the stock market at sometimes was doing pretty good. So you may be in a position to go higher with your finances. So it may be best for you to kind of seek out a certified financial planner who can help you kind of assess what your next steps are in terms of retirement planning, investing, things of that nature. So there are quite a few things online, calculators that can help you with some of those plans as well. Next slide. Any questions? So I kind of went pretty quickly through, some tips and strategies, but any thoughts or final questions as we wrap up here that, I might be able to help with?
Thank you very much, Darlette. That was really great, especially the analogy of the storm. To me, the storm was the COVID year we just had. That was our
Yes,
storm. And
for sure.
yeah, and I always told businesses now is the time when we're not out rushing to do like a SWOT analysis of their business. And you just covered the SWOT analysis for our personal finances. So that was great. Thank you
Excellent.
so much.
Excellent.
Anybody have
Great.
any questions or comments?
Those were great reminders. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same, thank you. And while we think that we don't need to, that an emergency is not gonna happen to us, it's wise to be prepared for that.
Exactly. Exactly. Better to be prepared and not needed than to need it and not be prepared. So exactly.
And go Deacons.
Are you a demon deacon?
My daughter.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I heard Wake, I was like, oh, it's exciting. And you're still, and my other daughter was at UNC Greensboro. So we did a lot of time in that Tri-City area.
Excellent. Yeah, that's my school there. Unfortunately, I have not had any of my children to go. My husband has brainwashed everyone in my house to think that North Carolina State is the only school in existence. So I lost the battle on that one.
Wake was a gem.
Well, Darlette, thank you so much. And I'd like to introduce you to our sponsor of our Wellness Wednesday, Sharon Burke of the Life Energy Foundation. Sharon, you want to say a few words?
I do. Thank you so much. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. I was late, but this is wonderful. And it sort of ties into, because this is National Sleep Week. So I know that if you get your finances in order, you will sleep better. So it's
true.
a great tip to tie that in, is like maybe at the Life Energy Foundation, we use what we call A3, which is assess, address, and adjust. And you hit all of those. Thank you so much. And I encourage everybody to really, sit with this. As she said, when we have this downtime, it's great to get these things in a row, because you don't want to be on the holding on to that tree when the wind is blowing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so thank you so much. Next Wellness Wednesday is